So Gusto password. Oh, you know what? I think it actually recognizes me on this machine already. Yep, cool. Okay, so where I left off last time was basically saying there's a whole bunch of things that need to be withheld from people's paychecks and then sent to various government agencies. And some of those you as a company also have to contribute to. And there's sometimes when you have to send something as being a company, but the employee doesn't. It's all relatively like bureaucratic, but if you don't do it, you get in big trouble. So rather than having to remember all that, any of a number of QuickBooks also has a payroll function. I've come to I like Gusto a lot, but any of the ones that I mentioned in that last slide from last week are good packages. So I just show you a couple things here that are important. So this is how easy it is to actually do payroll for a small business when you're actually employing people and you got to send all the taxes and all that. You get yourself an account. I think I pay $60 a month or so right now, but that's for a couple of additional seats. I think it's cheaper if you just have one employee. The number of employees you have, the cost per month goes up. Make sense? Okay, so once you've got an account, the first thing you got to do is actually add people to your team. So you just go to add team member, and we'll just go like Bob test. You got to put the name in there. You got to say whether it's an employee or a contractor. It's always when you're not sure in California, err on the side of making them an employee. Basically, you can if you pay somebody as a contractor, you don't have to withhold the taxes. You just have to pay them like a service provider or vendor. They're like an outside company. And then you send them a 1099 form at the end of the year, and they are responsible for declaring the taxes to the state and the federal government. But in order for somebody to be considered a legit contractor in California, you can't be their only client. They have to legitimately have a business that stands on its own and not just be dependent on you for work. So if you're hiring somebody part-time and, using a dating metaphor, you don't really want to get married, but like you want to keep dating. Like if they're the only person, you're the only job they had, you're the only job they have, you really in California should pay them as a W-2 employee. Otherwise, you will eventually get in trouble. Not as fast as with payroll tax withholding, but the state of California is very sort of pro-worker and radical when it comes to erring on the side of making sure that people get paid as employees rather than contractors. So unless they really do have multiple different sources of income and you're just one project that they're doing among many, it's better to do W-2. If, however, they really are a contractor, you click contractor individual, or if they actually have their own sole proprietorship or LLC, whatever, you can also contract with them as a business. I'm going to show you employee because that's the most common one that you're going to need to know how to do. So choose country, put somebody's email in here. I'm just going to put my own email for now. You can send an offer letter. That's icing on the cake. I usually don't use that right now. So save and continue. There's a couple important things. First of all, do they work from home or do they work in a certain location? If they work for you in a certain location, you got to make sure to put that location down. If they work from home, that's okay, but you also got to say where their address is, so that so depending on where people live, it changes the minor details of the tax withholding requirements. So where they live and where they work. So you got to make sure to put in, if they work from home, what the address is, and if they work in your office, what the address is. Make sense? So you gotta get that right. You gotta get people's name right. You gotta get their email right, because otherwise they're not gonna be able to fill out the paperwork, because they're gonna get an email from the software after you hire them. Gotta get the state right. Right now, like my best friend from childhood is like this fractional COO of my nonprofit. So he lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I was paying him as a contractor, but then I just started paying him as a W-2 employee this year. And oh my God, it's a pain in the ass to like, I have to fill out a whole bunch of more forms now for Ohio, in addition to the forms I already filled out for California. So be careful. Like it's nothing that's gonna break you, but there's a lot of hassle depending on which state it is. So you got to make sure to get that right, because that has cascading out implications for the rest of the paper. Make sense? They got to have some kind of job title. I like Sammy is the program coordinator. Ryan is the COO, and then we sometimes hire people temp, and like we pay them and then mark them up and pay, like have bill somebody else to work for them. And in that case, I just call them all associate. So you got to give somebody some title. It doesn't have to be super detailed or correct. Just make sure that it's something that's going to hold up and be the right thing to refer to this person to over the course of a year or two. Okay. So you can make it a pretty general title, but make sure that it actually is reflective of what they're going to be doing. Okay. When in doubt, use associate. That covers almost anything. As you get bigger, you can put a department in here. I have 4 people now that I'm paying, and it's still the town department, so you don't have to worry about that until you get a little bit bigger. You can put a manager in here, but I also don't use that. You gotta put the right day they start working for the company, though. That's important. So let's just say this is going to be next Monday. So 3, 10, 5. Oh. There we go. Save and continue. You can either pay people by the hour, you can pay them just salary with no overtime, you can pay them salary with overtime, you can pay by commission. Most everybody I pay right now, I either pay by the hour or I pay salary no overtime. There's some finer points of like you're really having people work a lot of hourly work. Eventually, if you're having them work 40 hours a week, at a certain point, depending on how much you're paying them and certain other things that go beyond the scope of this class, you have to decide whether they're salary overtime or salary no overtime. Most of the time when you're getting people started, you're either going to pay them a certain fixed amount for each month, or you're going to pay them by the hour and they'll report hours each week. Okay. For now, we'll choose pay by the hour. I usually start everybody at 20. But you know, you can go all the way down to what is it now? 16 in California if you're a really small business, or is it higher now?
1650.
1650. So you could go all the way down there. I don't like to be a cheap ass, so I start at 20. But this could also be, you know, if I wanted to pay somebody a monthly salary, for example, I think so that's I could pay 4,000 a month. Or I guess that I can pay 20 an hour or 25 or $100 an hour, whatever I want to pay. you're basically always going to pick not tax exempt. Um, like certain types of employees don't have to have taxes withheld. You can see here, clergy, religious order, family business employee, like newspaper vendor. There's not very many that actually fit that criterion. So normally you're just going to check not tax exempt and say continue. And then you're going to review everything to make sure it looks right. And you're going to click add Bob and set up payroll. And then Bob is going to get an email. And he has to type in his contact information, his address, his bank transfer information, and he has to fill out the W-4, which says how many, like, how much should be withheld from his paycheck based on how many, like, dependents he has and everything. And then he has to fill out the I-9 form saying that he is certified to legal to work in the United States. Okay? Those documents, the W-4 is actually necessary because the Gusto will not know how much to withhold from the paycheck and how much to send to all the government agencies if they don't have the W-4. The I-9, like, if you get raided by ICE, you have to have it. You do not have to submit it anywhere in order to start business. Make sense? You do have to have, like, you cannot have somebody start working without the W-4 because the software will not know how much to withhold and where to send it to if they don't fill that out. Okay. But that's it. As soon as you do all that stuff, you click send, the employee fills out their information and boom, they're going. And you don't have to worry about getting in trouble because the software will send everything where it's supposed to be every month. There's also in here, if you look, let's see, taxes and compliance. Benefits. No, actually, I think when I very first started, they had an offer right here on the homepage for workers' comp insurance. So I showed you guys, you can also go to the Secretary of State's website and they'll say all the companies that are approved to provide workers' comp in California. Next Insurance just happens to have a partnership with Gusto. So rather than me having to go through the extra trouble of finding a vendor, they were offered on here. I just chose them. And they should usually come up when you set up your account. Like it'll ask you, do you want workers' comp insurance? So you can either do it here or you can find one of the other vendors on the California Secretary of State website. Make sense? And that's it. So if you do this as a project, you're really just gonna like be coaching the small business or the entrepreneur, the startup owner again, on exactly what I just told you guys. You can fill it out for them, but most of the time they're the ones that are going to know the answers to the information, and it'll be just as fast for you to like get on a Zoom session with them maybe and just fill it out together than having them send you the info and then type it in. So if you do Gusto, it also goes along with the other stuff for QuickBooks that I'm about to show you right now. Okay, so you would be doing both of those as a project, and for Gusto, you just kind of pin down the small business owner, make sure that they choose the right email address and password that they want to use, and then you walk them through building it out on Zoom and I don't know, either record it on Zoom or send me the like password and email, or if the password and username, or if the client has the username and password and they are satisfied with what you did, you can just tell me they're satisfied with what I did and I can check with them to make sure you did it. Okay. Now we close Gusto.